Suverine, do you really think you can take on the four of us? Bradley Hunter's hoarse voice trembled with anger and disbelief, his muscular hands clenched into fists. I don't think so. I know, the fragile girl standing in the middle of the crowd of furious teenagers in the schoolyard replied calmly. Sorry, do you even understand what's about to happen? Jason shouted, his face contorted with rage. My sister still can't walk properly after what you did to her. And your sister shouldn't have touched Emily. There was not a trace of fear in Alexandra Cheng's voice, only chilling determination. Just remember, I warned you, each and every one of you. You're a sick psychopath, Bradley yelled, his face red with anger. You just beat people up and think that's okay? I'm protecting those who can't protect themselves. Alexandra slowly took off her school jacket, revealing her thin but surprisingly defined arms. And if you think that 4 against 1 is fair, then you're even bigger cowards than I thought. The crowd gasped. No one could believe that the quiet new girl who had just appeared at their school 3 days ago was once again challenging the most fearsome bullies at Westwood High, especially after what had happened yesterday with Jason's sister. You will pay for every bruise on my sister's face, Jason hissed, pulling a folding knife from his pocket. For every tear she shed. Jason, put the knife away, Alexandra said calmly. But something in her eyes changed, something dark and dangerous. Tornado, don't make me do something we'll both regret. It's too late for threats, psychopath. The best part is yet to come. Stay tuned to find out how it all ends. But for now, like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out. It all started 3 days ago when a black Mercedes stopped at the entrance of Westwood High School in the small town of Cedar Falls, Oregon. A tall, elegant woman in an expensive suit and a slender Asian girl with long black hair, pulled into a strict bun, got out of the car. Victoria Chung nervously adjusted her blazer and looked at her 17-year-old daughter. After everything that had happened in Los Angeles, moving to this backwater town seemed like the only salvation for their family. But looking at the grim gray school building and the curious gazes of the teenagers, the woman wasn't sure they had made the right decision. Alexandra, remember what we discussed, Victoria said quietly, gripping her daughter's hand tightly. No one must know about your past. Not about the competitions, not about the training, not about that incident. Alexandra nodded, but her mother saw the pain swirling in her eyes. The girl had lost everything. Her career, her reputation, her friends, her coach. And worst of all, she had lost faith in herself. Mom, what if they find out? Alexandra whispered, and Victoria heard the same childlike vulnerability in her voice that she hadn't heard in 3 years. What if someone sees those videos online? No one will find out. Victoria hugged her daughter, feeling her tremble. We changed our last name, moved to the other side of the country. No one here cares about mixed martial arts among girls. You can start over. But both women knew that forgetting the past wouldn't be so easy, especially when that past haunted you in every nightmare. 3 years ago, the name Alexandra Liu echoed across the West Coast. At 14, she was one of the top junior mixed martial artists in California. 28 wins in official tournaments, no losses. Sports magazines wrote about her as a rising star in women's MMA. Universities began to show interest. The first sponsorship deals were just around the corner, and everything collapsed in one night. Alexandra remembered that evening in vivid detail. The state championship final, a packed sports complex, the roar of the crowd. Her opponent was Michelle Davis, an aggressive blonde from a wealthy family who was not used to losing. The duel was supposed to be a walk in the park for Alexandra. Michelle was a good fighter, but not exceptional. However, something went wrong in the first round. Michelle was unusually aggressive. Her punches had deadly force, and her movements were faster than usual. Later, Alexandra would realize that Michelle had been taking steroids. But at that moment, all she saw was the furious attack of her opponent, and she instinctively responded in kind. The punch was perfectly accurate, a right hook to the jaw that Alexandra had practiced thousands of times, a punch that had made even grown men fall during sparring. Michelle fell and did not get up. A concussion, a fractured cheekbone, damage to the jaw joint, 3 months in the hospital, 2 years of rehabilitation. And although the doctors eventually acknowledged that Michelle had taken banned substances, public opinion had already formed. Alexandra Liu was a monster, a psychopath who had crippled her opponent. The video of that punch spread across the internet, racking up millions of views. The comments were merciless. She should be in prison. Ban her from fighting forever. This is not sport. This is attempted murder. Sponsors tore up contracts. Universities rescinded offers. The Federation disqualified her for 2 years. But the worst part was what was happening at school. Classmates who had once been proud of her achievements now recoiled from her in the hallways. Parents forbade their children from associating with her. Teachers looked at her as a potential threat. And then the threats began. Michelle's fans found their home address, phone number, social media pages. Every day, dozens of messages arrived with promises of retribution. Stones thrown at windows, slashed tires, graffiti on the gates. The killer lives here. Victoria was forced to hire security. Alexandra stopped leaving the house without an escort. Training ceased. No gym would agree to take her in. And then came the event that finally broke the girl. Late one evening, returning from work, Victoria didn't notice that a black pickup had followed her car. Only when it began to cut her off on a deserted road did she realize that this was no accident. The pickup rammed Victoria's Lexus, sending it into the ditch. The woman sustained multiple bruises, broken ribs, and a concussion. 2 weeks in intensive care, a month of recovery, and a note on the windshield of the wrecked car. Tell your killer daughter, we know where you live. This was the last straw. Victoria sold the house, the business, everything that could be sold. They changed their last name from Liu to Chung, moved to Oregon, and tried to blend into a small town where no one knew their past. But the past had a way of catching up. Entering Westwood High, Alexandra felt dozens of curious gazes upon her. Newcomers always attracted attention, especially in small towns where everyone had known each other since childhood. She was dressed as inconspicuously as possible. Baggy jeans, an oversized hoodie, old sneakers. Her hair was hidden under a hood, no makeup. Alexandra did everything she could to blend in with the crowd, to become invisible. But even under the baggy clothes, it was hard to hide her athletic build. Years of training had left their mark. Broad shoulders, developed arm muscles, precise, coordinated movements. She moved like a predator, even when trying to appear as an ordinary schoolgirl. Look, a new Asian girl, a whisper came from behind. Probably a nerd, like all Asians, giggled a girl with bright pink hair. Maybe she knows Kung Fu? The guys from the football team laughed. Alexandra gritted her teeth but did not turn around. She had heard racist jokes her whole life. In Los Angeles, you get used to it quickly. The first classes passed in tense silence. The teachers introduced the new student. Alexandra stood up, quietly stated her name, and immediately sat down. Classmates studied her with curiosity, but she avoided eye contact. In history class, the teacher, Mr. Johnson, an elderly man with a gray beard, asked, "Alexandra, tell us about yourself. Where are you from?" "From California, sir," the girl replied quietly. "Oh, Los Angeles? What made your family move to our little town?" Alexandra felt all eyes turned to her. The question hung in the air, demanding an answer. She couldn't tell the truth, that they were fleeing from threats and hatred, that her mother still woke up in a cold sweat from nightmares about the car accident. "My mother got a job offer," she lied. It was a half-truth. Victoria had indeed found a job. As a junior accountant at a local construction company, the salary was 3 times less than what she earned in Los Angeles, where she ran her own consulting firm. But they needed to start over somewhere. "Interesting," Mr. Johnson nodded. "I hope you enjoy Cedar Falls. We have a friendly community." If only he knew, Alexandra thought. At lunch, she sat in the corner of the cafeteria, trying not to draw attention. Most tables were occupied by established groups. Jocks, cheerleaders, nerds, goths, artists, the classic school hierarchy. And then she saw it. At a table by the window sat a small girl with red hair and freckles. She looked about 14, though she was apparently in high school. In front of her was a tray of food, but she wasn't eating. Instead, she was pressed against the wall, trying to become invisible. And next to her stood 3 seniors. Alexandra immediately recognized who they were. The alpha males of the school. The tall blonde with a square jaw and a football jacket was clearly the leader. Next to him were 2 friends, one a black guy with tattoos on his arms, the other a chubby redhead with a nasty look. "So, Carrot," the blonde said, leaning over the girl, "did you bring lunch money for normal people?" "I don't have any money, Bradley," the red-haired girl whispered, not looking up. "How can you not?" the black guy exclaimed. "What's that in your pocket?" He reached for the girl's jacket, but she flinched away. "It's for the bus home." "Now it's our bus money," the chubby guy laughed. "You can walk home, Carrot." Alexandra watched this scene, and rage boiled inside her. She knew all too well what it felt like to be defenseless when attacked by those who were stronger. The blonde, apparently named Bradley, roughly grabbed the girl by the wrist. "Give me the money, or we'll have a more serious talk after school." "Let me go." The girl tried to break free, but Bradley only tightened his grip. "Or what? You'll run to tell the teachers?" His friends laughed, and then something clicked in Alexandra's mind. She stood up from her seat and walked towards their table. Each step echoed in her temples like a dull thud. Her hands clenched into fists. Her breathing became steady and deep, just like before stepping into the ring. "Is there a problem?" she asked calmly, stopping next to their table. The trio turned around. Bradley looked her up and down and smirked. "And who are you?" "The new Asian girl." "My name is Alexandra," and I asked, "Is there a problem?" "No problem." Bradley didn't let go of the red-haired girl's hand. "Just sorting out some financial issues with our friend Emily." Alexandra looked at the girl. Emily was looking at her with tear-filled eyes, silently begging for help. "Let go of her hand," Alexandra said. Bradley laughed. His friends snickered too. "Or what? What are you going to do to me, Bruce Lee?" "Let go of her hand," Alexandra repeated, her voice taking on a steely tone. "Right now. Get out of here while you still can," the black guy interjected. "This doesn't concern you?" "It does concern me." Alexandra took a step closer. "Let the girl go. Last time, I'm telling you." Bradley finally released Emily's hand and stood up. He was a head taller than Alexandra and twice as wide. A classic jock, used to intimidating others with his size. "Listen, Asian girl," he loomed over her with all his mass. "Don't stick your nose where it doesn't belong. Otherwise, you'll regret it." "Are you threatening me?" Alexandra didn't back down an inch. "I'm warning you." "Then here's my warning." The girl looked him straight in the eyes. "If I see you hurt anyone in this school again, you will regret it." The cafeteria gradually fell silent. Students at nearby tables turned around, sensing the tension. Someone pulled out their phone, preparing to record a potential fight. Bradley was in shock. In 4 years of high school, no one had dared to stand up to him, especially not the newcomers, especially not fragile Asian girls. "Are you out of your mind?" He clenched his fists. "Do you know who you're talking to?" "A coward who picks on those weaker than him," Alexandra replied calmly. The crowd gasped. Someone shouted, "Oh, damn!" Phones pointed in their direction. Bradley's face flushed with anger. He swung, aiming his fist at Alexandra's face. And then something happened that no one expected. Alexandra easily dodged the blow, as if she had foreseen it. Then in one smooth motion, she grabbed Bradley's arm, turned him around, and pinned him to the table. All of this took no more than 2 seconds. "Ah!" Bradley screamed. "She's breaking my arm." "I'm not breaking it," Alexandra whispered in his ear. "Not yet, but I can if you don't apologize to Emily." "I'm not apologizing to that freak." Alexandra tightened her grip slightly. Bradley howled in pain. "Apologize right now." "Okay, okay," he gasped from the pain. "I'm sorry, Emily, I'm sorry." Alexandra released him. Bradley collapsed to the floor, holding his arm. His friends stood with their mouths agape, unable to believe what was happening. "If you touch her again," Alexandra said, addressing all 3 of them, "next time I won't be so polite." She turned to Emily. "Are you okay?" The red-haired girl nodded, unable to utter a word. "Let's get out of here." Alexandra grabbed her tray and headed for the cafeteria exit. Behind her, an incredible noise erupted. Everyone was discussing what had happened, forming theories, recording videos. And Alexandra walked down the hallway, realizing she had made a huge mistake. She had promised herself never to use force again, but she couldn't hold back when she saw a defenseless girl being bullied. Now her secret was at risk. Someone would definitely post the video online, and then they would find her. They would find those who wanted to take revenge for Michelle Davis. But when she turned around and saw Emily waving at her gratefully, Alexandra realized she didn't regret her choice. After classes, Alexandra hurried to the exit, hoping to sneak away to the bus. Her mother was supposed to pick her up only tomorrow. Today, Victoria had an important meeting at her new job, but a surprise awaited her at the exit. Emily was standing next to a group of other students. mostly freshmen and quiet honor students. They all looked at Alexandra with admiration and gratitude. "Alexandra!" Emily shouted, running up to her. "Thank you for what you did. Bradley has been bullying me for 2 years, and no one has ever stood up for me." "It's nothing." Alexandra tried to brush it off, but Emily grabbed her hand. "No, you don't understand. You changed everything. All day, Bradley and his friends have been avoiding us. They're scared. It won't last long," Alexandra said grimly. "Tomorrow they'll recover and take it out on you for today's humiliation. But you'll protect us, right?" asked a skinny boy with glasses. "You know how to fight." Alexandra looked at those hopeful faces and felt an unbearable weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. These kids saw her as a protector, a hero, but she knew the truth. She was a monster who could hurt any of them with one careless move. "I can't be with you all the time," she said. "You need to learn to defend yourselves." "Can you teach us?" Emily exclaimed. "Teach us what you know?" Alexandra hesitated. Teaching martial arts meant revealing her past. But on the other hand, these kids really needed protection. "I'll think about it," she finally said. On the bus ride home, Alexandra reflected on what had happened. She felt both guilty and righteous at the same time. Guilty because she had broken a promise made to her mother. Righteous because she couldn't stand by and watch the bullying. At home, her mother was pacing nervously in the living room with a phone in her hand. "Alexandra, thank God you're home." Victoria rushed to her daughter. "I got a call from the school. They said you got into a fight with a classmate." "Mom, I can explain." "What is there to explain?" Victoria's eyes filled with tears. "We agreed. No fighting, no drawing attention to ourselves. We came here to start a new life. He was bullying a girl." Alexandra shouted. "I couldn't just stand there and watch." "You could have. You should have." Victoria grabbed her daughter by the shoulders. "Do you understand what's going to happen now? If someone recorded it, if it gets on the internet..." "Mom, calm down. Don't tell me to calm down." Victoria was crying. "I still can't sleep properly. I still jump at every loud noise. And you're putting us in danger again." Alexandra felt her mother's words hit harder than any physical blows. She knew that Victoria hadn't recovered from the events in Los Angeles. The woman blamed herself for not protecting her daughter from bullying. She blamed herself for getting into an accident. "I'm sorry, Mom," Alexandra whispered. "I didn't want to." "I know you didn't want to," Victoria hugged her daughter. "But sometimes wanting isn't enough. Sometimes you need to think about the consequences." That evening, Alexandra lay awake for a long time, replaying the events of the day in her mind. She thought about Bradley and his threatening gaze, about the gratitude in Emily's eyes, about the fear in her mother's voice, and she made a decision. The next day, she was met with a completely different atmosphere at school. The video of the cafeteria incident had indeed spread across the school's social media. By morning, all the students had seen it. Some admired her bravery. Others were afraid of her. Some envied her. But there were no indifferent ones. In the hallways, students she didn't know greeted her. Some asked for autographs. Others asked where she learned to fight like that. Alexandra responded tersely and tried to get to class as quickly as possible. In the first lesson, the literature teacher, Mrs. Anderson, addressed her. "Alexandra, I heard about yesterday's incident. I want to say that violence is never the solution to problems." "I didn't use violence," the girl replied calmly. "I used self-defense. Self-defense is when you are attacked. But yesterday you intervened in someone else's conflict. So I should have watched as they bullied a defenseless girl? You should have gone to the teachers or the school administration." Alexandra smirked. Where were the teachers for the last 2 years while Bradley terrorized half the school?" The class fell silent. Mrs. Anderson turned red. "That's not your business." "It is now," Alexandra interrupted her, "because someone has to protect those who can't protect themselves." After class, a group of senior girls approached her. "Hi, I'm Samantha," introduced a beautiful blonde. "We wanted to get to know you." "Why?" Alexandra asked cautiously. "Don't you understand that everything has changed after yesterday? Bradley and his gang no longer feel untouchable. For the first time in years at this school, someone stood up to them. And so, we want to join you," said another girl, a brunette named Caroline, "to create something like a support group to protect each other." Alexandra shook her head. "I'm not joining anything. I just want to study in peace. But you see what's happening in this school?" "Okay, Samantha spoke passionately. Bullies are terrorizing the younger students, teachers are turning a blind eye, the administration is inactive. And you can change that. I can't and I won't, Alexandra replied sharply and walked away. But the problem was that she no longer had a choice. During the big break, a tearful Emily approached her. Alexandra, please help me, the girl pleaded. They took my backpack with my homework. If I don't submit the chemistry project, I'll be expelled. Who took it? Alexandra frowned. Jason Miller and his friends. They said it was revenge for yesterday, that now my life would turn into hell. Alexandra knew Jason Miller, the younger brother of that Michelle who was Bradley's friend, a tall, muscular guy with an aggressive personality. Where are they? In the parking lot behind the gym, Alexandra sighed. She knew she was heading into trouble, but she couldn't leave Emily in distress. In the parking lot, Jason was indeed waiting with 3 friends. They were smoking, leaning against a motorcycle. Emily's backpack lay nearby, its contents scattered across the asphalt. Oh, look who's here, Jason sneered upon seeing Alexandra. Our Asian heroine. Give the girl her backpack back, Alexandra said calmly. What backpack? One of Jason's friends mockingly asked. I don't see any backpack. The one lying at your feet. Ah, that trash? Jason kicked the backpack with his foot. We found it, so now it's ours. I'm telling you for the last time, give the backpack back to the girl. Or what? Jason threw down his cigarette and approached Alexandra. What are you going to do to us? Same thing I did to your friend Bradley yesterday. Bradley wasn't ready, but I am. Jason pulled out a folding knife from his pocket. And I'm not going to play by school rules. Alexandra felt a chill run down her spine. The knife drastically changed the situation. This was no longer a school fight. It was a real threat to her life. Jason, put the knife away, she said. Don't do anything stupid. The only stupid thing I did was not teach you a lesson yesterday, the guy hissed. He lunged with the knife, aiming for Alexandra's stomach. And then something she had tried to bury 3 years ago awakened within her. The instincts of a fighter, honed through thousands of hours of training, kicked in automatically. Alexandra dodged the strike, grabbed Jason's wrist with the knife, twisted it, and forcefully elbowed him in the chest. Jason collapsed to the ground, dropping the knife. His friends tried to attack simultaneously, but Alexandra was ready. A series of quick, precise strikes, and all 4 were sprawled on the asphalt, groaning and clutching their bruised spots. Alexandra stood over them, breathing heavily. Adrenaline surged through her blood. Her heart raced like crazy. For the first time in 3 years, she felt alive. And at the same time, she understood that she had made an irreparable mistake. Alexandra? Emily quietly called, who had been hiding around the corner of the gym all this time. Aha! Gather your things, Alexandra said hoarsely without turning around. Are you okay? Gather your things, the girl repeated. When Emily left, Alexandra was left alone with the 4 beaten guys. Jason propped himself up on his elbows and looked at her with hatred. You'll pay for this, bitch, he rasped. I'll find out who you are. And then what? Alexandra picked up his knife and broke the blade in half with her bare hands. Then you'll understand that you messed with the wrong girl. She tossed the knife aside and walked away, but she knew that the conflict was just beginning. That evening at home, Victoria met her daughter at the threshold. In her hands was a tablet with a news website open to a page. Explain this to me, the mother said in an icy voice, pointing to the headline. Schoolgirl beats up 4 classmates. 1 hospitalized. Alexandra silently read the article. Jason Miller was taken to the hospital with suspected concussion and a broken rib. His friends sustained multiple bruises. Mom, they attacked me with a knife. With a knife? Victoria paled. Alexandra, what's going on? I thought we had an agreement. We had an agreement, the daughter said tiredly. But life had other plans. What plans? You could just avoid conflicts. No, I can't, Alexandra shouted. Because they don't leave me alone. Because if I don't protect others, they become targets because of me. Victoria sat down on the couch, covering her face with her hands. My God, it's all happening again, she whispered. First fights, then the hospital, then the internet, then threats. Mom, this is different. Nothing is different. Victoria raised her head, and Alexandra saw that her mother was crying. You're becoming that same aggressive girl who injured her opponent in Los Angeles again. Those words hit Alexandra harder than any physical blow. The closest person to her was calling her aggressive, a monster. Huh. I was protecting people, she said quietly. You were injuring people, her mother replied. And if you don't stop, we will be running again. But this time, we won't have anywhere to run. Alexandra went up to her room and locked the door. She pulled an old gym bag from the closet, the only thing left from her former life. Inside were gloves, a mouthguard, elastic bandages. She held the gloves in her hands for a long time, recalling the training sessions, competitions, the taste of victory. And then she remembered Michelle Davis's face at the moment she fell in the ring. Alexandra threw the gloves into the corner and fell onto her bed. Maybe her mother was right. Maybe she really was a monster who only brought pain and destruction. The next day at school, an unpleasant surprise awaited her. 2 police officers were standing at the entrance, talking to the school principal. Alexandra Cheng? One of the officers addressed her. I need to talk to you about yesterday's incident. I have the right not to answer without a lawyer, the girl said. You are not under arrest, for now. But Jason Miller's parents have filed an assault report. They want to press charges against you. The school principal, Mr. Thompson, an elderly man with kind eyes, intervened. Officer Reynolds, perhaps it's worth clarifying all the circumstances? I spoke with witnesses. They claim that Jason pulled out a knife first. Witnesses can be mistaken or lying, the officer replied coldly. The fact remains, 4 boys are in the hospital and 1 girl is without a scratch. That doesn't look like self-defense. Alexandra remained silent. What could she say? That she had trained for 10 years and knew how to defend herself. That her training allowed her to handle multiple opponents at once, as long as they weren't professional fighters? Miss Cheng will remain in school until the investigation is complete, the principal said, and I will personally monitor the situation. Fine. The officer looked at Alexandra with a heavy gaze. But if something like this happens again, the case could go to juvenile court. When the police officers left, the principal turned to Alexandra. I need to talk to you, in my office. In the principal's office, Alexandra expected a reprimand or expulsion, but Mr. Thompson surprised her. Alexandra, I have been working in education for 30 years, he said, sitting down at the desk. And during this time, I have seen many children with unusual talents. Artists, musicians, mathematical geniuses. But you are the first I've met with such combat talent. Sir, I don't understand. Please don't pretend. What you did to those 4 healthy boys is not something an ordinary schoolgirl can do. You have professional training. Alexandra remained silent. I won't demand explanations, Mr. Thompson continued. Everyone has the right to their past, but I want to offer you a deal. What kind of deal? We have a problem with bullies at our school. There always has been. Bradley, Jason, their gang. They have been terrorizing younger kids for years. Teachers can't do anything. Parents complain, but it's hard to prove anything. And what do you propose? Become an unofficial safety consultant. Help kids who are being bullied. Teach them the basics of self-defense. But it needs to be done wisely, without drawing too much attention. Alexandra looked at the principal in surprise. You're suggesting that I officially do what they want to put me in jail for? I'm offering you a chance to channel your abilities constructively. You can change the atmosphere in the school, make it safe for everyone. And what if I refuse? Then you will just be an ordinary student trying not to attract attention. But we both know that's impossible. Conflicts will keep happening until you learn to prevent them. Alexandra pondered. The principal's offer was tempting, but dangerous. On one hand, she could help kids like Emily. On the other, any exposure could lead to the revelation of her past. I need to think about it, she said. Of course, but don't think too long. Tomorrow, Bradley and his friends will be back at school, and they will be very angry. I'll think about it, Alexandra repeated and left the office. In the hallway, Emily was waiting for her with a group of other kids. They all looked excited and scared. Alexandra, Emily shouted, running up to her. We heard the police came. Are you going to be arrested? No, the girl shook her head. Not yet. We're scared, said a skinny boy with glasses named Daniel. If they expel you or arrest you, Bradley and his gang will take it out on us. They'll take it out on us anyway, grimly noted a girl named Susan. My brother is in the parallel class. He heard them planning revenge. Alexandra looked at those frightened faces and realized she had no choice. These kids had become hostages of a situation she had created herself. "All right," she said. "Let's meet after class in the old gym. I'll show you some self-defense moves." "Really?" Emily exclaimed with joy. "Really, but this has to stay between us. Not a word to anyone." "We promise," the kids replied in unison. After class, 12 kids gathered in the abandoned gym that hadn't been used in a long time. Mostly younger students, a couple of quiet seniors, and a few girls. Alexandra looked at them and thought about how she was making another mistake. Teaching martial arts required time, patience, and a professional approach, and she had none of those. "All right," she said. "Hey, the first thing you need to understand is that self-defense is not about attacking. It's a way to protect yourself and avoid a fight." "What about what you did to Jason?" Daniel asked. "What I did to Jason was a mistake," Alexandra replied honestly. "I acted too aggressively. The result was 4 in the hospital and the threat of criminal charges." "But you were protecting Emily." "Yes, but there's a difference between protection and revenge. I should have stopped when I neutralized the threat. Instead, I kept fighting." For the next hour, Alexandra showed the kids basic moves: how to stand properly, how to dodge strikes, how to break free from holds. Nothing complicated or dangerous. "Remember," she said, "the goal is not to defeat the opponent. The goal is to create an opportunity to escape and call for help." The kids listened attentively, trying to replicate the movements. Alexandra saw gratitude and admiration in their eyes, and that scared her the most. She knew what happened when kids started to see you as a hero. After the training, when everyone had dispersed, Emily approached her. "Alexandra, can I ask you something?" "Of course. You used to fight professionally, right? I saw how you move, how you hold your hands. My dad served in the Marines and he moves just like that." Alexandra froze. Emily was too observant. "Why do you think that?" "Because ordinary people don't fight like you do. And because you always look sad when you talk about fighting, like it causes you pain." Alexandra was silent for a long time. "Everyone has a past, Emily. Not always a good one. But you're a good person. You protect us. Good people can also do bad things," Alexandra said quietly, "sometimes even with the best intentions." At home, her excited mother was waiting for her again. "Alexandra, the school principal called me," Victoria said. "He said he offered you some kind of job." "Not a job, helping other kids." "What kind of help?" her mother asked suspiciously. Alexandra told her about Mr. Thompson's offer. Victoria listened silently, but her face grew darker. "Are you out of your mind?" she said when her daughter finished. "You want to officially engage in something that could ruin us?" "Mom, these kids need help." "And we need safety," Victoria shouted. "I can't go through what happened in Los Angeles again." "Mom, calm down. Don't tell me to calm down." Victoria paced the room, waving her hands. "You only think about yourself, about your principles, about your desire to be a hero, and I think about what will happen to us when you get arrested." "They won't arrest me." "They will, because you can't stop, because you're addicted to fights, to adrenaline, to the feeling of your own power." Those words hurt Alexandra deeply, especially because there was a grain of truth in them. She really only felt alive during moments of conflict. "Mom, I just want to help." "You want to feel important," Victoria interrupted her. "You miss the fame, the admiration, the time when everyone knew your name." "That's not true." "Then prove it. Turn down the principal's offer. Stay away from fights. Act like a normal schoolgirl." Alexandra silently went up to her room. Her mother followed her. "Are you listening to me?" Victoria yelled. "I forbid you to engage in this nonsense." "You can't forbid me," Alexandra said quietly, not turning around. "I am your mother." "So what?" The girl turned sharply. "What will you do? Move to another city? Cry again and blame me for all your problems?" Victoria paled as if she had been slapped. "How can you say that?" she whispered. "And how can you be so selfish?" Alexandra replied. "You only think about your fears, and I think about the kids who come to school in terror every day. Those kids are not your responsibility. Then whose? The teachers who pretend nothing is happening? The parents who are afraid to complain? The police who only show up when someone is already in the hospital?" Victoria sat on her daughter's bed and cried. "Alexandra, I'm so scared," she whispered. "I'm afraid it will all happen again, that you'll be bullied again." that we'll be attacked again. Alexandra sat next to her mother and hugged her. Mom, I'm scared too, but I can't live in fear my whole life. And I can't live without fear, Victoria replied. After that accident, I wake up every day thinking that something bad might happen. Mom, have you seen a psychologist? I have. He says I have post-traumatic stress. He prescribed pills, but they don't help. Alexandra realized for the first time how much those events had affected her mother. Victoria had always been a strong, determined woman, and now she had turned into a frightened creature, afraid of her own shadow. I'm sorry, Mom, the girl said. I didn't think about how hard it is for you. And I didn't think about how hard it is for you, Victoria replied. You lost everything you dreamed of, and I'm only making things worse with my fears. They sat together, hugging, crying, and trying to figure out how to move forward. The next day at school, Alexandra faced an unpleasant surprise. Bradley was back, and he brought reinforcements. During the big break, a group of 8 high school students approached her. Not just local bullies, but guys from neighboring schools as well. Well, what's up, Asian girl? Bradley said, his face still bearing the marks of bruises. Did you think you'd get away with it? I thought you learned not to mess with younger kids, Alexandra replied calmly. I did. Now I'm messing with you, the guy smirked. Meet my friends from the neighboring school. They came specifically to see the girl who thinks she's tough. Alexandra assessed the situation. 4 against 1, and all the opponents were bigger than her. In the confined space of the school hallway, it would be hard for her to maneuver. What do you want? She asked. Justice, replied one of the newcomers, a huge guy with tattoos on his arms. You beat up our friends. Now it's our turn. If you attack me, it will be recorded by the security cameras. You will all be expelled. We're not in school, Bradley scoffed. We're in a parking lot. There are no cameras, and no one will see how you accidentally tripped and fell. A few times, Alexandra understood that the situation was critical. She couldn't handle 8 people, especially if they had weapons. She needed to find a way out. Fine, as she said, but not here. Too many witnesses. Where then? The old quarry outside of town. After school. Just you and me, Bradley. One-on-one. The guy frowned. Why just the 2 of us? I have scores to settle with you. Because if you can't handle me alone, then you're a coward. And cowards don't deserve respect. This struck at Bradley's pride. His friends exchanged glances. Maybe she's right, one of them said. If you can't beat one girl... Shut up, Bradley barked. Fine, Asian girl. The quarry, 4 o'clock. Just the 2 of us. Agreed. When they left, Alexandra realized she had made another mistake. She had agreed to a duel that she might not survive. Bradley was twice her weight and clearly not going to play by the rules. But she had no choice. If she didn't show up, he would find a way to take it out on the younger kids. After school, Alexandra didn't go to the improvised training session in the old gym. Instead, she went home to prepare for the duel. At home, she changed into sportswear, warmed up, and practiced a few combinations of strikes. Her body remembered every movement, every technique. But she knew that technique might not be enough. Bradley was not just big. He was mean, vengeful, and ready to do anything. At 3:30, Alexandra rode her bike to the old quarry. The place was well known to local teens, an abandoned pit where limestone had once been mined. Now it was a gathering spot for underground car races and fights. Bradley was already waiting for her, leaning against his pickup truck. But he wasn't alone. 3 of his friends stood nearby. I thought we agreed on a fair fight, Alexandra said as she approached. We did, Bradley smirked. But I didn't say they couldn't watch. Alexandra got off her bike and surveyed the area. The quarry was a deep pit with sheer walls. Rainwater was collecting at the bottom, forming a small lake. If someone fell in there... Are you scared? Bradley asked, noticing her gaze. I'm concerned, the girl replied honestly. This place is too dangerous for a fight. Then you shouldn't have agreed. Bradley took off his jacket, revealing his muscular torso. He had boxing gloves on his hands. Seriously? Alexandra was surprised. Gloves? I don't want to break my hands on your hard Asian head, the guy smirked. He attacked immediately, not giving Alexandra time to prepare. A wide left hook that she barely avoided. An uppercut from the right that she dodged at the last moment. Bradley fought not like a street bully, but like someone with serious training. His movements were coordinated, his strikes precise. Surprised? He asked, continuing his assault. I've been boxing for 4 years. Did you think you were dealing with just some musclehead? Alexandra ducked and weaved, studying her opponent's fighting style. Bradley was a good boxer, but he was used to fights in the ring, with rules and a referee. Here, there were no rules. When he tried to execute another combination, Alexandra suddenly changed tactics. Instead of retreating, she went on the offensive, using techniques from mixed martial arts. A sweep, a takedown, and Bradley found himself on the ground. But he quickly got back up, his face twisted in rage. "Playing dirty," he growled. "I'm playing effectively," Alexandra replied. For the next 5 minutes, they exchanged blows, each trying to find the opponent's weak spot. Alexandra was faster and more technical, but Bradley compensated for that with strength and aggression. Suddenly, the guy grabbed a handful of sand and threw it in Alexandra's face. While she was trying to clear her eyes, he delivered a powerful blow to her stomach. Alexandra doubled over in pain, gasping for breath. Bradley seized the moment and grabbed her by the neck, attempting to apply a chokehold. "Give up, Asian girl," he hissed. "Surrender, and I won't hurt you." But Alexandra was not about to give in. She felt for Bradley's leg and stepped forcefully on his foot. The guy loosened his grip and the girl twisted out of his hands. Now they stood facing each other, breathing heavily. Both were beaten and exhausted, but neither wanted to back down. "Last chance," Bradley said. "Get out of our town. Forever." "No," Alexandra replied. "Then I'll kill you." He launched into a final attack, but he didn't notice that they were gradually approaching the edge of the quarry. When Alexandra dodged his strike, Bradley couldn't stop himself. He leaned over the edge, flailing his arms and trying to regain his balance. Alexandra could have simply stepped back and let him fall. That would have solved all her problems. But instead, she grabbed his hand and tried to hold on. "Hold on," she shouted. But Bradley's weight was too much. Alexandra felt herself being pulled into the abyss as well. At the last moment, Bradley's friends snapped back to reality and rushed to help. Together, they managed to pull the guy back onto solid ground. Bradley lay at the edge of the quarry, trembling from shock. He realized he could have died, and he understood who had saved him. "Why?" he rasped, looking at Alexandra. "Why did you save me?" "Because you don't deserve to die," the girl replied. "No one does." Bradley was silent for a long time, then said, "I won't touch you again, or anyone else. Do you promise?" "I promise." Alexandra nodded and walked to her bicycle. Behind her, she heard Bradley's friends helping him up, leading him to the car. On the way home, she thought about how everything could have ended in tragedy. If she hadn't held on to Bradley, he could have died, and she would have become a killer. But most importantly, she realized that conflicts could be resolved not just through force. Sometimes it's enough to show the opponent that you're willing to sacrifice yourself for them. At home, her mother was waiting, pacing back and forth with a phone in her hand. "Alexandra, thank God!" Victoria rushed to her daughter. "Where have you been? The school called and said you didn't come to the last class." "Mom, I need to tell you something," the girl said wearily. She told her mother about the challenge to a duel, the fight in the quarry, and how Bradley almost died. Victoria listened silently, growing paler with each word. "Alexandra, you could have died," she whispered. "I could have, but I didn't. And what if you had? What would I do without you? Mom, I couldn't have acted differently. If I hadn't shown up, Bradley would have taken it out on the younger kids." "Let him take it out," Victoria shouted. "Better let other kids suffer than my daughter." Alexandra looked at her mother in surprise. "Mom, that's not what you mean." "It is," Victoria cried. "I'm selfish. I only think about you. And if your safety requires sacrificing other kids, I will sacrifice." "Mom, no, Mom. I'm a bad mother. I should have protected you in Los Angeles, but I couldn't. I should have protected you here, but I couldn't again." Alexandra hugged her sobbing mother. "You're not a bad mother. You're just a scared woman who has lost her sense of safety." "I don't know how to live on," Victoria whispered. "I fear every day, every phone call, every glance." "Mom, what if we try to change the situation? Not run away from problems, but solve them." "How?" "Tell me the truth about what happened in Los Angeles. The whole truth." Victoria froze. "What are you talking about?" "Mom, I'm not little. I understand that you're hiding part of the story from me." Victoria was silent for a long time, then said, "Okay, but you might not forgive me for what you hear." And the mother began to tell a story that turned out to be much more complicated and frightening than Alexandra had thought. It turned out that the duel with Michelle Davis had been staged. Father Michelle, a wealthy businessman, paid the judges to ensure his daughter's victory at any cost. He wanted Michelle to receive a sports scholarship at a prestigious university. Victoria learned about this by chance from one of the judges who was tormented by guilt. She wanted to tell everything to Alexandra before the match, but she didn't have time. And when Michelle started taking steroids to win at any cost, the situation spiraled out of control. "You hit a girl who was pumped up on drugs," Victoria recounted. "Her body couldn't respond normally to injuries. That's why she was hurt so badly." "Why didn't you tell me?" Alexandra asked. "Because I had no proof, and Michelle's father threatened to destroy us if we dared to say anything." "And what happened next?" "Then he kept his promise. He organized an online harassment campaign, bribed journalists, turned public opinion against us. And when I tried to fight back, he staged an accident." Alexandra was in shock. "So that accident wasn't an accident?" "No, I was deliberately rammed. And the note wasn't from Michelle's fans, but from her father's hired hands." "Oh my God, Mom, why did you stay silent?" "Because I was scared. Because I understood. If we tried to fight back, he would kill us." Alexandra hugged her mother, realizing the burden she had carried all these years. "Mom, we have to tell the police about this." "No!" Victoria exclaimed fearfully. "He will find us everywhere." "He won't find us, because we won't hide." "Alexandra, you don't understand who we're dealing with." "I do understand. A coward who hides behind money and threats. But cowards fear those who aren't afraid of them." Alexandra took out her phone and started dialing a number. "Who are you calling?" her mother asked in alarm. "A journalist from Los Angeles. The one who wrote articles about this case. It's time to tell him the truth." "Alexandra, no. Mom, we can't hide our whole lives, and I won't live in fear." The conversation with the journalist lasted 2 hours. Alexandra told the whole story, from the rigged match to the move to Oregon. The journalist listened attentively, asked questions, and requested evidence. "I have recordings of conversations with that judge," Victoria confessed. "I recorded them just in case." "Then we have a chance," said the journalist. "Give me a month to investigate. This is a complicated case. It will take time to find additional evidence and witnesses." After they finished the conversation, Alexandra felt a strange sense of relief. For the first time in 3 years, she wasn't hiding from the truth. "What will happen now?" her mother asked. "Now we live a normal life," the daughter replied. "You go to a psychologist and heal your trauma. And I go to school and help the kids." "And what if Michelle's father finds out where we are?" "Let him find out. I'm no longer that scared girl who ran away from Los Angeles." The next day at school, Alexandra was in for a surprise. In the old gym, there were not 12 kids, but 30. Even those who had previously been afraid to talk to her showed up. "What's going on?" she asked Emily. "Everyone knows what you did for Bradley," the girl replied. "Ah, how you saved him, even though you could have let him fall. And so, you showed that strength is not meant to cause pain, but to protect, even your enemies." Alexandra looked at the gathered children. In their eyes, she saw not only admiration, but also understanding. "All right," she said. But today we're not learning self-defense techniques. Today we're talking about how to resolve conflicts without fighting." For the next hour, Alexandra told the children that true strength lies in the ability to protect the weak, forgive the enemy, and find a peaceful solution even in the most difficult situation. "But what if there's no peaceful solution?" one of the boys asked. "Then you use force, but only for protection and only the minimum necessary." "And how do you know how much force is needed?" "Through experience and mistakes. I made many mistakes before I understood this difference." After the training, the school principal approached her. "Alexandra, I need to talk to you." In the director's office, she was met with a surprise. A middle-aged man in military uniform was sitting at the desk. "Alexandra, meet Captain James Morris, the coordinator of youth safety programs in our district." "Captain?" The girl was surprised. "Sure, nice to meet you, Alexandra." The man stood up and extended his hand. "I've heard about your achievements." "What achievements?" "You changed the atmosphere in the school in just 1 week. The bullies stopped terrorizing the younger kids. The children learned to protect each other. The number of conflicts decreased by 80%. I just showed them a few self-defense techniques." "You showed them much more," the director interjected. "You taught them not to be afraid, but also not to be aggressive." Alexandra, said the captain, the district is developing a program to prevent school violence. We need young consultants who could work with teenagers. You could help us as a volunteer. I'm still a student. You're a student with unique experience. You know what it's like to be both strong and a victim at the same time. Alexandra pondered. The offer was tempting, but she remembered her past. Colonel, do you know who I am? I do. Alexandra Liu, former California champion. The girl who lost everything because of one accident. Sorry, then you understand why I can't accept your offer. On the contrary, that's exactly why you should accept it. You know better than anyone what uncontrolled aggression leads to. Alexandra was silent for a long time. I need to think about it. Of course, but know this. You are not alone. You have people who believe in you. At home, her excited mother was waiting with a laptop in her hands. Alexandra, look, Victoria exclaimed. On the screen was an article by the journalist they had spoken to. The headline read, "Scandal in Junior Sports, How a Wealthy Businessman Ruined the Life of a Talented Athlete." Alexandra quickly read the article. The journalist had conducted a thorough investigation, found evidence of bribery of judges, Michelle Davis's use of steroids, and the organization of online bullying. Mom, what does this mean? It means that the truth has finally come out, Victoria replied with tears in her eyes. Michelle's father was arrested on charges of fraud and harassment. The judges who accepted bribes have been suspended. And what about Michelle? She is giving interviews, telling how her father forced her to take drugs. She is asking for your forgiveness. Alexandra silently reread the article. Your 3 years of suffering, fleeing, fear. And all that time, the truth was there. It just needed the courage to be told. Mom, how do you feel? Strange, Victoria admitted, as if a heavy burden has been lifted off my shoulders. For the first time in years, I am not afraid of tomorrow. That's good. Alexandra, I want to apologize to you for making you hide, for not believing in you from the very beginning. Mom, you were protecting me in the only way you knew how. But it was the wrong way. You can't hide from problems your whole life. Alexandra hugged her mother. Oh, now we know a better way. The next day at school, an event occurred that would forever change Alexandra's life. Bradley approached her with his former friends. Alexandra, he said, we wanted to talk to you. About what? About what you did yesterday. You saved me, even though you didn't have to. I already explained why. I know, but I want to say something else. Bradley nervously fidgeted with his hands. I've always thought that strength is the ability to intimidate others, but you showed me that true strength is the ability to help others. And so, we want to join your group. We want to learn how to be strong the right way. Alexandra looked at him in surprise. Bradley, do you realize that most of the kids in my group are the ones you used to bully? I do, and I want to apologize to them. Publicly? Publicly. That day, almost all the students gathered in the school auditorium. Bradley stepped onto the stage and took the microphone. Hello, everyone, he began with a trembling voice. My name is Bradley Hunter, and I have been a bully for the last 4 years. The audience laughed, but not maliciously. They understood. I picked on the younger ones, intimidated the weak, thought that strength gave me the right to be cruel. I was wrong. He found Emily's eyes in the front row. Emily, I'm sorry for everything I did to you. You didn't deserve to be treated that way. The girl nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. Daniel, Susan, Michael, I'm sorry to all of you. I know that words won't erase the pain I've caused, but I promise that I will spend the rest of my life trying to make amends. The hall was silent. And I want to thank Alexandra Cheng. She showed me what true strength is. She saved my life, even though she had every reason to hate me. He looked at Alexandra, who was sitting in the last row. Thank you for not letting me fall, in both the literal and figurative sense. The audience erupted into applause. Alexandra felt tears flowing down her cheeks. After the speech, many people approached her. Teachers, parents, students, everyone wanted to thank her for changing the atmosphere in the school. Alexandra, Mr. Thompson said, I have a proposal. What is it? Would you like to become a volunteer coordinator for the school violence prevention program? It would be an unpaid position, but with official recognition and recommendation letters for college. At 17? Age doesn't matter when there are results, and you have results, he smiled. Besides, it will help you when applying to university. Alexandra thought about the colonel's proposal, her past, and her future. Mr. Thompson, what if I told you I have more ambitious plans? What plans? I want to create a program that will work not only in our school, but across the entire state. A program that will teach kids to be strong, but not cruel. That will require a lot of resources. I have the support of the National Guard, and I think there will be sponsors who want to invest in the future of children. Mr. Thompson smiled. You know what, Alexandra? I believe you can do it. That evening at home, Alexandra told her mother about her plans. Are you sure you're ready for such responsibility? Victoria asked. No, her daughter answered honestly, but I'm ready to try. What if it doesn't work out? Then at least I'll know I tried to change the world for the better. Victoria hugged her daughter. Then I will support you in everything. 6 months passed. Alexandra's Strength Without Violence program was already operating in 8 schools in the district. She conducted weekly seminars, consulted teachers and parents, working closely with school psychologists. Her story made it into local news and several articles were written about her in regional publications. But most importantly, in the schools where the program operated, there was a noticeable decrease in incidents of school violence. One day, a letter arrived at her home from Los Angeles. The sender was Michelle Davis. Dear Alexandra, I know I have no right to ask for your forgiveness. I know that because of me and my father, you lost everything that was dear to you. But I must tell you the truth about that day. I remember every second of that match. I remember how my father forced me to take pills, saying that otherwise I would disappoint him. I remember begging him to stop, but he said I was a coward if I wasn't willing to do anything to win. When I saw your strike, I realized I had lost. But instead of relief, I felt horror. Not from the pain, but from the realization that I would become a weapon in my father's hands against you. The last 3 years I have spent in hospitals and rehabilitation. Not just physical, psychological. It took me time to understand that my father turned me into a victim, just like he did to you. But the scariest thing is that I remember how he planned to destroy you. He said that Asian girls shouldn't beat white American girls, that he would show everyone who's the boss here. Alexandra, I saw your interviews. I saw how you help children, and I want you to know, you have become the person I always wanted to be, but never dared to. If you can ever forgive me, I will be happy. If not, I will understand. With respect and deep remorse, Michelle Davis P.S. My father received 15 years in prison. Justice has prevailed, although too late. Alexandra finished reading the letter and felt something change inside her. The 3-year pain she had carried in her heart began to recede. It hadn't disappeared, but it became lighter. She took a pen and began to write a response. Dear Michelle, thank you for your honesty. It took me 3 years to understand. We were both victims of a cruel man. You are not to blame for what your father did to us. I forgive you, not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace in my heart. If you want, come visit us in Oregon. I have a program for children who have survived trauma. Perhaps your story can help someone else. With understanding, Alexandra. But fate had one more trial in store for Alexandra. A week after sending the letter, she was awakened by a phone call at 3 in the morning. It was Captain Morris, and his voice trembled with excitement. Alexandra, I'm very sorry to call so late, but we have an emergency. What happened? There was an incident at a school in Portland. A student brought a gun and threatened his classmates. The police subdued him, but he claims he wanted to be strong like Alexandra Chung. Alexandra felt her world collapse around her. What did he mean? The boy watched your lectures online, but he understood them in his own way. He decided that strength comes through fear and weapons. Oh my God. Alexandra, the media has already picked up this story. They say your program cultivates violence among teenagers, that you teach children to be aggressive. Alexandra sat on her bed, feeling everything she had built over the past months crumble like a house of cards. Captain, you know that's not true? I know, but public opinion is shaped not by facts but by emotions. And right now, emotions are directed against you. In the morning, Alexandra turned on the news and saw her photo with the caption, Teacher of Violence. Reporters were talking about a dangerous program that turns children into aggressors. The phone wouldn't stop ringing. Journalists demanded comments. Parents screamed into the phone, blaming her for all sins. Sponsors of the program withdrew their support one by one. By noon, television vans arrived at their house. Reporters crowded at the gates, shouting questions. Miss Cheng, What do you say about your program inspiring a student to use a weapon? Do you feel responsible for what happened? Is it true that you hid your criminal past? Alexandra looked at the crowd from her room window and felt history repeating itself. Another bullying, more accusations, more hatred. Mom, she called for Victoria. Do we need to run again? Victoria approached her daughter and hugged her tightly. No, she said firmly. This time we will stay and fight. But Mom, you're scared. I am scared, but I'm more afraid that we will spend our lives running away from problems. You're right. We need to solve them, not avoid them. That evening, Alexandra decided to hold a press conference. She stepped out to the reporters, standing tall and looking them in the eye. I have a statement, she said into the microphone. I deeply regret what happened in Portland, but I want to clarify. The crowd fell silent. I never taught children to use weapons. I never called for violence. My program is based on the principle of protecting the weak and resolving conflicts peacefully. But that boy said you inspired him, shouted one of the reporters. That boy misunderstood my message, but that does not make me responsible for his actions. Do you deny your guilt? I acknowledge my responsibility as an educator. Perhaps I did not clearly explain the difference between protection and aggression. Perhaps I should have spent more time preventing misunderstandings. And what are you going to do? Alexandra took a deep breath. I am temporarily suspending my program. I will review the methodologies, consult with psychologists, and study what happened. Akeem, so you admit that the program was wrong? I acknowledge that any program can be improved, and I am ready to work on it. The press conference did not help. On the contrary, the media interpreted her words as an admission of guilt. Headlines screamed, Chung admits failure of her program, and teacher of violence apologizes. The situation at school also escalated. Parents demanded that Alexandra be removed from working with children. The school board held an emergency meeting. Ms. Cheng, said the board chairman, Mr. Wilson, we are forced to temporarily suspend you from all activities related to teaching children. Mr. Wilson, the children from my program have never used violence unjustifiably. This is not about your children. It's about public opinion and the safety of the school. Always. So you are sacrificing me for your own peace of mind? We are protecting the interests of the school. Alexandra stood up and headed for the exit. At the door, she turned around. Mr. Wilson, remember this moment. When bullying starts again in the school, when children come home in tears again, remember that you preferred public opinion to real help. At home, she was greeted by a group of students from her program. Emily, Daniel, Susan, even Bradley. They all came to support their teacher. Alexandra, said Emily, we don't believe what they say on TV. You taught us to be kind, added Daniel. You taught us to protect the weak, not to hurt them. Without you, I would have remained a jerk, Bradley admitted honestly. You changed my life. Alexandra looked at these young faces and felt tears streaming down her cheeks. Thank you, she whispered. But I don't know what to do next. Fight, said Emily. Just like you taught us to fight, not with fists, with words, actions, truth. And what if it doesn't work? Then we will know that we tried, Daniel replied. That's better than not trying at all. That evening, Alexandra sat in her room for a long time, contemplating the situation. Her program was destroyed, her reputation shattered, the future uncertain. And then the phone rang. It was an unfamiliar woman calling. Ms. Cheng, my name is Sarah Johnson. I am the mother of Tyler Johnson, that boy from Portland. Alexandra froze. Mrs. Johnson, I don't know what to say. I want to meet with you, in person. There are things you need to know about my son. But I don't think that's a good idea. Please, it's important, for all of us. The next day, Sarah Johnson arrived in Cedar Falls. She was a thin, middle-aged woman with tired eyes and nervous hands. They met in a small cafe on the outskirts of town, away from journalists. Miss V's, Chung, Sarah began, I need to tell you the truth about Tyler. Mrs. Johnson, I understand that you are defending your son. No, the woman interrupted. I am not defending him. I am trying to protect you. Alexandra looked at her in surprise. What do you mean? Tyler never watched your lectures. He didn't even know about your program until the day he brought the gun to school. But he said what his lawyers told him to say. Ms. Cheng, my son is seriously ill. He has been diagnosed with severe mental disorders. He hasn't taken his medication for 3 months. Alexandra felt the ground slipping away beneath her. Then why did you allow me to be accused? Sarah started to cry. Because my ex-husband threatened to take Tyler away from me if I told the truth about his illness. He doesn't want his son to be considered a psycho. Oh my God. Miss Cheng, I know I'm doing something terrible, but I can't lose my son. He is all I have. Alexandra looked at this unfortunate woman and understood her pain. A mother willing to do anything for her child, even if it meant destroying another person's life. What do you want from me? Forgiveness and understanding. I know I have no right to ask, but Mrs. Johnson, Alexander said quietly, I understand you, but your silence is destroying my life and the lives of hundreds of children whom my program could help. I know, and I want to fix it. How? I am ready to tell the truth about Tyler's illness, about the fact that he has never heard of your program, but I need your help. What kind of help? Help me find a good lawyer, one who can defend Tyler's rights as a sick child, not a criminal. Alexander was silent for a long time. Mrs. Johnson, if I help you, your ex-husband may take your son away from you. Perhaps, but it's better to lose him because of the truth than to keep him because of a lie. Alexander reached across the table. All right, I will help you, and you will help me. Thank you, Sarah whispered. Thank you for not hating me. I have learned to distinguish between enemies and people caught in difficult situations. You are not an enemy, Mrs. Johnson. You are just a scared mother. A week later, Sarah Johnson gave an interview to the country's largest television network. She told the whole truth about her son's illness, about the fact that his words about Alexander's program were lies, about the pressure from her ex-husband. The public reaction was immediate. The media, which had recently harassed Alexander, now wrote about the unjust accusation of an innocent teacher. Sponsors began to return. School boards were reconsidering their decisions. But for Alexander, everything had changed too drastically. She realized how fragile reputation can be, how easily public opinion can turn against you. Mom, she said to Victoria that evening, I don't want to be involved in public activities anymore. Why? Because I'm tired of being a target, tired of every step I take being misinterpreted. But you help children. What if next time someone else misunderstands my message? What if innocent people suffer because of me? Victoria sat down next to her daughter. Alexander, remember what you told me? That you can't hide from problems your whole life? I remember. Then don't hide. Yes, you may be accused again. Yes, there will be people who misunderstand your words. But that's no reason to stop helping those in need. Mom, what if I really am guilty? What if my methods are wrong? Then they need to be corrected, not abandoned altogether. At that moment, there was a knock at the door. A group of people stood on the doorstep. Parents of children from Alexander's program, teachers, even some local business people. Alexander, Mr. Thompson said, we came to talk to you. About what? About the future, about your program, about how we can improve it and make it even more effective. But after everything that happened, that's exactly why. Mrs. Anderson, the literature teacher, interjected. We saw how easily a good cause can be destroyed, and we realized that it needs to be protected. Alexander, said Emily's father, my daughter was afraid to go to school for 3 years. Your program gave her confidence. Do you think I will let someone destroy that? We want to create a public fund to support your program, added a local businessman, so it won't depend on the whims of politicians and journalists. Alexander looked at these faces and felt hope reignite in her heart. But what if something goes wrong again? Then we will solve the problems together, Mr. Thompson replied. You are not alone, Alexander. You have a community of people who believe in your cause. A month later, the Power Without Violence program was relaunched, but now it included additional components, working with psychologists, thorough explanations of the principles of nonviolence, and an individual approach to each child. Alexander understood that the path would not be easy, that she could be accused of something again, that there would be attempts to undermine her work. But she also understood that she had something greater than just a personal mission. She had a community. On the day she first entered the school gym after the scandal to train the children, a surprise awaited her. The gym was full, not only of students, but also their parents, teachers, and even townspeople. What's going on? She asked Emily. We decided that your first training session after your return should be special. the girl replied. Everyone wants to show you their support. Alexandra stood before the crowd, feeling tears welling up in her eyes. I don't know what to say. Shelby, don't say anything, someone in the crowd shouted. Just do what you do best. Help the kids become stronger. And then Alexandra understood the most important thing. She had spent years trying to hide from her past, then years trying to atone for it. But true strength was not about running from the past or redeeming it. True strength was about accepting oneself entirely, with all the mistakes, fears, and failures, and continuing to help others. All right, she said, smiling through her tears. Let's get to work. But just at that moment, when it seemed everything was falling into place, an event occurred that turned her entire life upside down. A figure appeared in the doorway of the gym, someone Alexandra had never expected to see. Michelle Davis. The girl looked different than 3 years ago. Thinner, paler, with short hair and a scar on her face from that very injury. But her eyes were different, not angry, but filled with pain and determination. The gym fell silent instantly. Everyone knew this story. Everyone understood who had come. Alexandra, Michelle said quietly. Can I talk to you? Alexandra felt her heart pounding in her chest. The whole gym was watching the two of them. The girl who had struck and the girl who had been struck. Of course, Alexandra replied. But maybe in private. No, Michelle shook her head. Look, in front of everyone, what I want to say needs to be heard by all. She walked to the center of the gym and people parted for her. Michelle looked small and fragile among the crowd, but there was an astonishing determination in her movements. My name is Michelle Davis, she began in a trembling voice. 3 years ago, I fought Alexandra Cheng in the ring. Back then, I was called Michelle Liu. The gym was absolutely silent. Everyone thinks they know this story, that Alexandra crippled me, that she is a monster who cannot control her aggression. Michelle took a deep breath. That's not true. The monster was my father. He forced me to take steroids. He bribed judges. He turned sports into a dirty game. And when Alexandra hit me, she hit a girl who was pumped full of drugs. A whisper rose in the gym. But that's not the main point, Michelle continued. The main point is that for the last 3 years, I've been watching Alexandra. I've seen how she helps children, how she teaches them to be strong but kind. She turned to Alexandra. You've become the person I always wanted to be. You turned your pain into strength to help others. And I just wallowed in self-pity. Michelle, Alexandra said quietly, you don't have to. I do, Michelle interrupted her. Because of me, you lost 3 years of your life. Because of me, you were bullied, threatened, forced to hide. Michelle pulled an envelope from her bag. These are medical records about the steroids I took, recordings of conversations with my father, all the evidence that that fight was rigged. Why are you doing this? Alexandra asked. Because I want to atone, and because I want to help you with your work. Help? I want to be part of your program. I want to tell children about the consequences of steroids, parental pressure, unhealthy competition. Michelle looked at the crowd. Kids need to know that sports can be wonderful, but only if it's based on honesty and respect, not on the desire to win at any cost. Alexandra approached Michelle and extended her hand. Welcome to the team, she said. The gym erupted in applause. People were crying, hugging, and shouting with joy. 2 girls whose lives had been shattered by a single blow stood hand in hand, ready to help others together. But the most important moment came later, when the crowd dispersed, and they were left alone in the empty gym. Alexandra, Michelle said, there's something else, something I didn't say in front of everyone. What? That night, when I was lying in the hospital after our match, I wanted to die. Not from pain, from shame. I realized I had lived a lie my whole life. Michelle sat down on a bench, and Alexandra sat beside her. My father came to my room and said, now you will be famous. The whole country will pity you. And I understood that was all he wanted, to turn me into a victim for his own gain. Michelle, wait, let me finish. That night I decided to end my life. I gathered pills, wrote a note. But then I saw an interview with you on TV. Alexandra looked at her in surprise. What interview? The one you gave a week after the match. You were crying and said you regretted what happened, that you dreamed of becoming a champion, but not at the expense of someone else's pain, that you were willing to leave the sport if it would help my recovery. Michelle wiped her tears. And I thought, if she can be so strong, so honest after everything that happened, then maybe I can too. You saved my life, Alexandra. Not just in a medical sense, literally. Alexandra hugged Michelle, and both girls cried. From the pain of the past, from the relief of the present, from the hope for the future. You know what the strangest thing is? Michelle said through tears. I'm grateful for that blow. What? If it hadn't happened, I would have lived my whole life in a lie. I would have thought that victories were more important than honesty. I wouldn't have known who I really am. And who are you? A girl who wants to help others not repeat her mistakes, just like you. 6 months later, the Power Without Violence program was already operating in 30 schools in Oregon. Alexandra and Michelle traveled to give lectures on weekends, balancing this with their senior year studies. They shared their story about how enmity can turn into friendship, how pain can become a strength to help others. But the real test of their work came on an unexpected day. Alexandra was conducting a training session at one of the schools in Chicago when an excited teacher burst into the gym. Alexandra, we need your help, he shouted. There's a fight in the hallway. High schoolers are beating up a newcomer. Alexandra and Michelle ran into the hallway. There, they saw a scene painfully familiar. 5 big guys surrounded a skinny Asian boy and were methodically beating him. Hey, Alexandra shouted. Stop it right now. One of the attackers, a huge guy with tattoos, turned around. And who are you? Another Asian? I'm Alexandra Cheng, and if you don't stop right now, you'll regret it. The guys burst into laughter. Oh, I've heard about you, said their leader. You're the one who teaches kids to fight. So are you going to show us a masterclass? Alexandra felt a familiar rage boiling inside her. These guys were twice her size, but she knew she could beat them. Every instinct screamed at her. Attack, protect the boy, show them strength. But instead, she did what no one expected. She stepped between the attackers and their victim and said, My name is Alexandra Cheng. I was the California champion in mixed martial arts. I can beat you all at once. The guys exchanged glances. Uncertainty appeared in their eyes. But I won't do that, Alexandra continued. Do you know why? Why? Asked the leader. Because true strength isn't about defeating the weak. True strength is about protecting them. She pointed at the beaten boy. Look at him. He's 1 against 5. Where's the justice in that? Where's the bravery? He's Asian, one of the guys said uncertainly. So what? Does that make him less of a human? Michelle asked, stepping closer. My name is Michelle Davis. 3 years ago, I also thought that race determined a person's worth. She showed the scar on her face. This is a mark from Alexandra's blow. And you know what? I deserved that hit, not because I was a white girl fighting an Asian girl, but because I was an unfair athlete who took steroids. The boys listened in silence. We could fight right now, Alexandra continued. You would get what you deserve, and I would feel like a hero. But what would that change? Nothing, the youngest in the group said quietly. Exactly. And do you know what would change? If you apologize to that boy, if you help him get up, if you promise to never touch those who are weaker than you. A long pause. The boys exchanged glances, clearly struggling with their own pride. Finally, the leader of the group approached the beaten boy and extended his hand. Sorry, buddy, he said. We acted like jerks. The boy cautiously took the outstretched hand and got up. What's your name? Alexandra asked. Kevin Lim, he replied quietly. Kevin, do you want to learn how to defend yourself? I do. Then come to our classes. But remember, we teach not to take revenge, but to protect. Not to win, but to help. When everyone dispersed, Michelle turned to Alexandra. Do you know what just happened? What? You chose peace over war, words instead of fists. You became the teacher I've always been looking for. Alexandra smiled. We both became the teachers we were searching for. We just had to go through hell to understand that. That evening, they sat in a hotel room, preparing for the next day's lectures. Alexandra watched Michelle, who was studying reports on their program, and thought about how strange life is. 3 years ago, they were enemies. Now they had become best friends and partners in a cause that was more important than their personal ambitions. Michelle, she said, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you ever regret leaving sports? Michelle looked up from the documents. Every day. But do you know what I regret even more? What? The time we wasted hating each other instead of helping others. Alexandra nodded. And you? Michelle asked. Do you regret it? About sports? Sometimes. About that hit? Every night. But about our work now? Never. Even when they start bullying us in the press again? Especially then, because then we will know we are doing something important, something that makes people react. Michelle smiled. Do you know what my mom told me yesterday on the phone? What? Saronim, that for the first time in 3 years, I'm talking about the future, not the past. That's a good sign. Yes. And she also said she's proud of me. For the first time in my life. Alexandra stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the night Chicago stretched out. Millions of lights, millions of people, millions of stories. Michelle, do you think we're really changing anything? Of course. Today, 5 boys apologized to the boy instead of beating him up. That's already a change. But that's so little compared to the scale of the problem. Alexandra, Michelle approached her. Do you remember the parable about the boy and the starfish? No. The boy was walking along the shore after a storm, throwing stranded starfish back into the water. An adult told him, there are thousands, you can't save them all. And the boy replied, but I can help this one, and threw another one into the water. Alexandra nodded. We can't save all the children from violence, but for every Kevin Lim, every Emily, every child who has stopped being afraid to go to school, we can help. At that moment, the phone rang. It was Victoria. Mom, Alexandra answered. Daughter, turn on the news, urgently. Alexandra turned on the TV. The screen showed a segment about their program, but not a critical one, a praising one. The Power Without Violence program has shown promising results, Aman, the host said. In the 6 months of operation in participating schools, the number of bullying cases has decreased by 40%. The number of fights by 60%. And most importantly, none of the program participants have used violence unjustifiably. Then they showed interviews with children, parents, and teachers. Everyone said the same thing. The program works because it teaches children not to avoid conflicts, but to resolve them correctly. Michelle, do you see this? Shouted Alexandra. I see it. And you know what the best part is? What? They showed the statistics. During the program's operation, not a single participant committed a serious act of aggression at school. Not one. Alexandra felt tears of joy streaming down her cheeks. We are really changing something, she whispered. Yes, and this is just the beginning. The news showed the latest segment, a group of children from different schools who talked about how the program changed their lives. I'm not afraid to go to school anymore, said a girl about 12 years old. I learned to protect the younger ones without fighting, added a teenager. I realized that strength is not when you can hit someone, but when you can help someone, smiled a high school girl. And at the end of the segment, they showed Kevin Lima, the very boy they had saved from being beaten a few hours earlier. Alexandra and Michelle showed me that even enemies can become friends, that even from pain, something beautiful can be born, and that each of us can change the world for the better. Alexandra turned off the television and looked at Michelle. Do you know what this means? What? We, 2 girls who once hated each other, managed to create something that helps thousands of children. If that's not a miracle, then what is a miracle? Michelle approached her and hugged her. A miracle is that you didn't let anger and pain destroy your heart, that you turned your trauma into a strength to help others. We both did it. Yes, we both did. They stood by the window, embracing each other, and looked at the lights of the big city. Somewhere out there lived children who were afraid to go to school, children who were bullied, children who became bullies out of despair and pain. But now these children had hope. Hope that 2 people who had gone through hell and found their way to each other would help them find strength without violence, courage without cruelty, confidence without aggression. Michelle, Alexandra said quietly, thank you. For what? For showing me that sometimes the best friends come from the scariest enemies. And thank you for teaching me to forgive, both myself and others. And at that moment, Alexandra understood the most important thing. All her life, she had sought strength. First in sports, then in attempts to escape from the past, then in the desire to help others. But true strength was not in punches. not in victories, not even in the ability to protect the weak. True strength was in the ability to turn pain into love, an enemy into a friend, trauma into a lesson. True strength was in getting up after a fall and reaching out to the one who knocked you down. And standing there in a hotel room in a foreign city, next to the girl who had once been her worst nightmare and had now become her best friend, Alexandra finally felt truly strong, not because she could defeat someone, but because she could save someone, even herself.